Hi again, so thank you for doing the first bits and kind of all that. So what we need to do now is prepare for the next session and do homework. Okay, so I know we're looking at starting the next study and it's on the Sperry, but it's just to keep the lessons all in one kind of package. Okay, so the next study, there's lots of kind of information to learn beforehand, so I want us to spend a bit of time doing that now. Okay, so it's one of the more kind of modern ones on the spec, and it's brilliant. So behavioural and neuro correlates of delay of gratification 40 years later. So what the hell does that mean? Behavioural, how people act. Neural correlates, brains. Delay of gratification, do you know what that is? So that is like resisting temptation and 40 years later. So this study uses a sample of mid-40-year-olds who were first tested 40 years ago about if they could resist a marshmallow. Okay, there was like 500 odd of them. You'll see all the details in the booklet. Okay, who did the study at 4, and then this study kind of looks like 50 of them, 59, 57, and looks at their brains 40 years later. Okay, and see if there's similarities between their behaviours when they were 4. It's super interesting. Okay, so this is all about temptation, so just take a couple of minutes to answer these questions. So pause me and answer these questions for me. So temptation is the wish to do or have something that you know you should not do or have. So I'm terrible at this. I cannot resist temptation. I'm terrible. All I'm thinking of right now as I'm doing this video is I want to go and play Football Manager. Pre-season, best time, got to sign some players. Ipswich finished 4th in the Premier League last year, qualified for Europe for the first time. It's a big season. I just want to go and play it, and I can't, so I've got to do more work. Okay, so that's what I find hard to resist. Strategies, I try not to think about it. I try and just bury myself into the work I've got to do. Okay, so we all kind of work differently on being able to resist temptation. So what I want you to do is on to YouTube, type in very tempting marshmallow test 2009. This is an example of the marshmallow test. We don't have footage of the original one done back in 1970. Okay, but it's the same idea. There's kids left alone, can they resist a marshmallow? It's brilliant little video. But what I want you to do is to note of the bits of behaviours that help them resist temptation and things that make the temptation worse. You're gonna like see kids sniffing marshmallows. It's proper funny. Okay, so watch that. However, if those of you have Netflix, if there was I haven't checked, I'll be honest, but I only saw this probably about 6 weeks ago. Something called Magic for Humans, season 1, episode 1. You'll see some stuff on linked to this, so you can watch that as well. But watch the kids most importantly. So hopefully you found that really interesting. Like the kids are hilarious. I like the one who's like picked at it and then smelt it and turned it back. Really good things. So the posh term for resisting temptation is delay of gratification. Okay, so this is kind of like the proper terminology that we need to use. But it's just looking at how we resist temptation and what strategies, and that's the big picture here, is what are the strategies to stop people doing things they shouldn't do, because this has kind of big implications about eating, drinking, gambling, going to the gym or not, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I want you to kind of think of like the big picture here. So I said to you, they kind of tested 500 odd kids when they're 4. And they've done loads of follow-up studies on these kids, and this is one of the funniest ones, well not the funniest, but the really interesting thing. So they're either called high delayers or low delayers, and the kids who could delay are called high delayers, so they could wait for their marshmallow. They were found to have really successful lives compared to the kids who couldn't resist temptations. So they did better in their exams, they less likely to kind of engage in substance abuse, less likely to be obese, they cope better with stress, and they had better social skills. Okay, so it's a real key to success really, is being able to resist temptation. And the idea is that you work towards longer goals and you see the bigger picture instead of going the easy option of to get this done and cheat kind of thing. So it's really important, so it'd be interesting to see where you all fit on this. So, like I said earlier about different strategies, so if you delay gratification of watching telly and get your homework done now, you'll learn more and get better grades. So there are kind of different ways to view this. I think for like work, I'm really good of like getting stuff done, so better things can happen afterwards. Okay. So yeah, so I like the second one, supermarket. I'm terrible. If I go to the supermarket hungry, I come out with so much rubbish. It's unbelievable. But if I go there full, I only get what I need, healthy stuff, not all good. What kind of things do you struggle with? Phone use would be my guess. Oh, what's that? Always on it. Okay. If we're in class right now, I'd be taking your phones off you and seeing how long you'd need to check it for. But if we get time, we'll do it when we come back in, because it's a funny experiment. So the first thing I want you to kind of do is get a new piece of paper out, okay, with a title, Background Theory to KC, and there is a PDF of a book. There's only like 2 pages of a book that I scanned in, and I want you to answer these 7 questions. Write the questions out, because you'll need to refer to this, because this is stuff you need to know. Okay, I said it's got 15 minutes. That's for if we were in class. Take as long as you want. Okay, so pause me and answer all the questions, please. Okay, so just checking that you've got the right stuff. I'm sure you have. So what is cognitive control and how does it work? So this is the idea of how we suppress our thoughts, and so we can like stop thinking about the thing we're content. So I'm currently not thinking about Football Manager. I'm just thinking about doing my work. Okay, so like the kids not looking at the marshmallow. So that's what cognitive control is. Okay, and it means we won't act on our actions because we're not thinking about it. So EXD kind of did some work, and they found that the kids who focus on the good parts, the rewarding aspects of things, they find it harder to suppress the action. So I'm thinking of my 8-year-old at the moment. I gave him, when he's allowed to use a phone, he has, a bit like me, he's copied me in doing a football management game, but it's like a simpler version. And he keeps coming to me and goes, "Oh, Daddy, when I do this with Paris, when I do that," and he keeps thinking about it, so he keeps wanting to play on it. But if you kind of distract him, he doesn't care about it. So the more you think about the rewarding aspect, the harder it is to suppress the feelings of having to do it. So hence the picture of Augustus Gloop. So what is cooling? So it's a strategy. So the thing is cooling you down, calm you down. Okay. So this is when you stop focusing on things that are alluring. Okay, so if you think about what the clips were in the video, okay, what the kids did, you'll see that some of them were very good at cooling themselves by not like touching it and stuff like that. Okay, but obviously the opposite is hot. Okay, so give examples. So there's anything that you think is appealing about that situation or thing you're eating. Oh, food, like, oh, don't think about the smell of food that you like and stuff like that. Okay. So, what did Metcalf and Michelle find out about these kind of strategies? Okay, and they found out that the cool system is based on cognitive control, and the hot system is all about desires and emotions. So what we've got to do now is link these to parts of the brain. Okay, and we did this in our last session and the stuff you did at homework. So we know that the inferior frontal gyrus deals with self-control. Okay, so cognitive control. Okay, cooling things. Oh yeah, don't need that. I'll focus on other things. While the ventral striatum is involved in the rewarding aspects of things. Okay, so what this Casey study will actually do the brain scans of the kids, or they're adults now, but they put the kids into either a high delayer who could resist temptation or low delayers, the kids who can't, and they're then able to see if their brains were different. And this is 40 years later. So do kids who couldn't resist temptation, do they have a more active ventral striatum? And the kids who could resist the marshmallow, do they use their inferior frontal gyrus more? And that's what the study basically is kind of looking at. But this, we're now testing adults. helps. So marshmallows isn't going to work. So they kind of tested on something called go, no-go tasks. The actual one used in the study was all about faces and if they were smiling. And I can't find like an electronic copy of this, but there is something similar. So what they had to do is that every time they saw like a certain face, they had to press the button as quickly as they could. Okay. So I found another one which is about seeing a green circle. So if you go onto Cognitive, this kind of website, you can actually practice a go, no-go task, and you can see how other people do, if that makes sense. And you can see how good you are, because the idea is the quicker you press the button, the better you are. But if you can't resist temptation, you're going to press the button when you shouldn't. And that's what we want to kind of find out. So again, pause me and go and do this. Do it 4 or 5 times, see how good you get, so you kind of get an average. It's really interesting. And then there's one more kind of slide to go. Okay, so this is your homework for the next session. There's quite a bit. Don't see you for overall, like for a chunk of time. So firstly, and probably the most important, is complete your study summary for Sperry. You know what you're doing. Use these headings. Make this as detailed but not like full sentencey as possible. Make it visual. Do the best you can. Okay, but then I want you to do some prep work for the next study. It's a bit more complicated than all the others we've seen so far. So go through it, read it. If you print out, highlight stuff, write down good and bad things about the design as you're going through, but also write down questions that you're not sure about the answers for, because then I can come back and help you. As always, after each study, we'll do some exam questions. So the beginning of the next session, I will give you 11 marks worth of exam questions linked to Sperry's study. So please kind of source up for that. I'm here, you know where I am. If you need me, just message me and I'll see you next time.